So the last and third thing that we're going to talk about is certainty of object, which is also called certainty of the beneficiaries. So basically, are you able to tell who the beneficiaries are? Now, I did say in the first video that if you didn't have one of these three certainties, the trust wasn't going to be held as valid. That's not entirely true, because there are a couple of exceptions to needing certainty of object in an express trust, and that is either if it's a charitable trust, so it's held, for charity, and we'll talk about charitable trusts. But if it's money to help the poor, well, that's probably going to fall afoul of quite a lot of the certainties that we're about to talk about, but may well be held to be valid anyway. And there are a couple of exceptions to not having purpose trusts, so trusts which aren't for someone but for a specific purpose. There's a couple of anomalous or outlying exceptions in UK law which do allow purpose trusts, and those don't need a beneficiary, or by nature don't have a beneficiary anyway. So you don't have to have certainty of beneficiary, but unless you've got a charitable or one of those very rare purpose trusts, you still need certainty of object. So certainty of beneficiary just means that is the trustee or is the settlor going to be able to tell who holds these beneficial rights? Now, with a fixed trust where you've got a fixed list of people, that's much simpler in determining whether or not you've got certainty of beneficiaries, because the trust rights have to be set out, and the amount that's to be distributed or to be held on trust for each beneficiary is going to be set out, often to be divided equally or into certain shares, and the trustees can't do that unless they know who all the beneficiaries are. So if it's a fixed trust, you're probably going to find any sort of lack of clarity around who the beneficiaries are might be quite tricky. Whereas discretionary trusts, or powers to be able to advance trust property, will withstand, this is probably a bad way to put it, but it will withstand a bit more uncertainty, because things might not have to be divided equally between the beneficiaries who are eligible to receive the trust property. So why wouldn't you know who the beneficiaries are? Well, sometimes you're just not going to be able to, if I left my money to John Smith and I said, I want my mother to hold all my property on, I don't know a John Smith, importantly, I want my mother to hold all of my property on trust for John Smith. Before I died, I put it in my will. There's going to be quite a lot of uncertainty, because nobody knows who John Smith is. They don't know how I know him. They don't know who he is. They don't know how to find him. So that becomes unworkable, and we'll talk about unworkability. But it may be that you just don't know who a beneficiary is. That doesn't mean that it lacks certainty of beneficiary. Just because a beneficiary can't be found, if you know who they are, that doesn't mean the trust fails for lack of certainty of objects. It may be, for example, if, and this is relatively common, let's say a father leaves his estate to all four of his children, and three of those children can be found, and one of them has been estranged for a very long time, and they know that they left the country 20 years ago, they haven't had any contact with them since. The trustees are going to have to spend some time and money, probably hiring, let's say, an investigator to look into whether or not this person can be found. Often they'll buy beneficiary insurance, so an insurance company will take the risk if this beneficiary ever comes forward, but they'll eventually say, the fourth child can't be found, nobody knows where they are, we're going to distribute the trust in 3 equal ways instead of 4 equal ways. that doesn't mean that the trust lacks certainty of beneficiary. If, however, the trust had said something like, or the will had said something like, I leave I leave my estate to everybody I ever liked, well, then the trustees aren't going to know who that is, and so it's probably going to fail for certainty of, it's not going to have the certainty of object needed to create a valid trust. So to put this just more clearly for your notes, there's probably 4 ways that a beneficiary could be uncertain. The first is just conceptual uncertainty. So who fits into this role? Conceptual uncertainty, again, that's going to be something like, I leave my money to everybody I ever liked. Who knows who that is? Conceptual uncertainty might be, I leave my money to